Oh my word. Hey everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. On AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It is a joy to be with you today. We're talking about the vote. We are in the last week or so of when you can get re-registered or when you can get registered to vote. We want you to do that. In Texas alone, 1 million, more than 1 million people have been kicked off the voter rolls. Attorney Darrell Jones, chairman of the Transformative Justice Coalition, you can't make this up. It sounds crazy, but I promise you that is what has happened, everybody. And you need to understand that that could be you. So, like every day, I'm checking. I go to vote.org to make sure that I am still on the voter rolls. I did it this morning. I'm going to do it tomorrow morning. And see, I'm fortunate because I'm in a state. I'm in Illinois where you have same day on-site registration, but
Mhm.
that might not be the case for you. So please go to vote.org because I've gotten personal messages from several of you. Hey, D. Ray. Hey, Bernadette. Hey, Andre. Hey, Shalom, Robert. And to our Jewish brothers and sisters, may you be blessed in this holy season. May God bless you real good. And everybody, I want you to go to the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe. Please thumbs up, thumbs up. Bernadette, D. Ray, Andre, Robert, anyone who's watching. Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. I need you to do that. The Santita Jackson and Friends Facebook page. I need you to go over there. That's where I can get my friends. And at Santita J. We're going to be talking about this vote until we can talk no more about it because in South Carolina on October the 4th, that is your cutoff date.
Mhm.
That's your in other states it goes up to the 7th, but that's it. So go to vote.org, enter your name, your address, you'll find out whether you are still registered. And it will let you know you're registered, and that's great. But if you're not, they let you know that too. You have the option of then going to re register. They will do that for you. And then what you need to do is click and find out and let your other friends know hey, we only have until the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, or the 7th, depending upon where you live, to vote. So let's talk about this, everybody. But today, I want to dedicate the show. We've had wow, two of our legends who have gone to be with the ancestors. Dikembe Mutombo. Of
Mhm.
course, he went to Georgetown University, get this, everybody, to become a physician. He went there on a full academic scholarship. And he played intramural basketball. See, I remember this because I was in school in Washington. And what did he do? He ended up becoming a Hall of Famer. And when he lost his mother to a stroke, because she did not, he's from the Congo, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, because she could not get adequate medical assistance, he saw the real breach, and he built a hospital over there. And he's become a humanitarian. He made his transition. He had brain cancer, had no idea. 58 years of age, just 58 years of age. And of course, Chris Christopherson, my heart stopped. From A Star is Born, of course, with Barbara Streisand so many years ago. But he wrote Me and Bobby McGee, Help Me Make It Through the Night. So many wonderful, wonderful hits. Did you know he was a Rhodes Scholar?
Hmm.
Graduated Phi Beta Kappa from his college. Did you know he was a veteran, the son of a general? Did you know that he was a true progressive? Did you know that one night in 1984, when we were on our way to the Democratic Convention, I was home for about a week or so from college, and I'm watching Tom Snyder. You remember when Tom Snyder used to come on at
Mhm.
midnight? Okay, so I was not an insomniac, but I enjoyed his show. And Chris Christopherson comes on. And you know what he did, Attorney Jones? He started, he pulled out his guitar and he sang a song named Jesse. And it was about Reverend Jesse Jackson,
Wow.
his presidential run.
Hmm.
So Tom Snyder said, "You really like him, huh?" He said, he's a hero. He's a hero of mine." So he and his other fellow highwayman, uh, Willie Nelson, became among my father's biggest supporters.
Mhm.
Yeah, you didn't know that. You don't know. But he also, when Sinead O'Connor uh, who was a true progressive, when she had her questions about how the Catholic Church was handling sexual abuse, and she was booed at a festival. He came back out onto the stage himself, gave her a hug and a kiss. He said, "Don't let the bastards get you down." Wrote a
Hmm.
song for her too.
Wow.
And that was the title of it. He was a good, good, good man. When we got the first black mayor of Memphis, Tennessee, he flew in from Hawaii, which is where he'd been living, to help us to celebrate that. Wonderful human being. 88 though. I had no idea that God had given him that many years. But wow, what a life. But these are two great men who made their marks. They made their marks. And so they've gone to be with the ancestors, and let's make them proud, everybody. Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Let's talk about voting today. And hey, you've got the runway, Attorney Daryl Jones, because you are on the road now, getting out the vote, making sure that people know that voter suppression is real. And a lot of Democrats don't want Democratic Party establishment. They don't want to talk about this because they said, it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. And if you talk about it, you'll prompt it. I'm like, no, that's not true. If you don't talk about it, people who are being inundated with all of this mindless emails, no, mindless mailers that are coming to you every day. Somewhere in there might be a little card, little something that looks like a little postcard, something that you need to throw
Hmm.
away, that's telling you that you have been removed from the voter rolls, or that's asking you a question. Well, I'm going to let Daryl Jones do it, because when we had Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds on yesterday, and he's going to come back on tomorrow, and I want you to come back on too, because I think we need to be very deliberate every day
Hmm.
and let people understand how your votes are at risk. At least three of you have direct messaged me, including you, Robert, and you've told me that because I've been purged from the rolls, I've been purged. You've been not, maybe not you. I think Robert. I think it was you. You've been purged from the rolls because on your street address you wrote street instead of drive.
Hmm.
Things like that are happening, and so you need to understand that this is happening. 1 million in Texas alone. I was absolutely gobsmacked by that, Attorney Daryl Jones. But you're not. You're like, it sounds awful, but yeah, it's true. How? Okay, how? Let's start with how. No, let me just start here. How do you remove people from the voter rolls? And everybody go to see the Vigilantes Inc. movie, SaveYourVote.org. Greg Palast was on with us, and I'm going to have him back on this week. SaveYourVote.org. The great thing about it now is you can go to SaveYourVote.org or GregPalast.com, Palast with a T, and you can see it for free.
Hmm.
Leonardo DiCaprio and Jamie Foxx have put their money in. So all you need to do is go to SaveYourVote.com, or is it .org? SaveYourVote.org and GregPalast.com. Go there and you can see Vigilantes Inc. You're going to love the movie. Great. Daryl, you know it's a great movie.
Absolutely, Santita. I mean, hats off to Greg Palast, because what he documents in that documentary is just so incredibly powerful and useful as a tool for people that are trying to understand what this voter purging is all about, and why we always talk about it, and the power of voter purging. Because one of the things folks got to remember is that the purpose of the voter purge is to make the voting pool smaller, because when the voting pool is smaller, those that are from the mindset that don't represent the majority mindset in the country, that gives them the greater opportunity to win. So what they want to do is they want to try to finagle this thing, work this piece of purging in such a way that it knocks off some of the marginalized voters, those are not going to be, following so closely the rules and what's happening in the voter purging world. So what they do, with answering one of your questions, what generally happens in the voter purging world is that they'll come up with a concept, they'll come up with a policy, that they will say, and sometimes the state legislature will say, we need to clean our voter rolls to be certain that people that have passed on, that have died or have moved, are removed from the rolls. And that sounds good and fair and everything. But the problem becomes this: what they do and the way that they enforce it and where they send it out. So they would concentrate on areas that generally have high minority populations, high Black
Mhm.
populations, high brown populations, communities of color. And then what they do is that they send a postcard out. And a postcard, looks like one of those real old, flimsy-looking postcards that it's from junk mail, right?
Mhm.
From some company or something like that. And most people today aren't going to look at this junk mail, and so they don't look at it. They don't respond to it, and they throw it away. Well, once it's thrown away, what then happens is that the registrar marks that it was not returned. Therefore, the address we sent it to must not be the address where you live. And then they begin the process of removing that person from the voting list. And then once that person is removed from the voting list, they're not notified. Why? Because the registrar is saying, we don't know where you live. So how can we notify you? We sent you a postcard and you didn't respond. So there's nothing else we need to do because you didn't act.
But
And that's how they do the purging process.
in an age of email, that's what they do to you.
Absolutely.
Well, to be fair, everybody's not connected. Everybody's not connected. But so if you don't respond to the email, I mean to the mailer,
To the mailer.
then they start the purging process.
That begins the purging process because they say, we don't know where you live. We don't know how to contact you. You don't live where we have down here that you live.
So they
Therefore,
bear no responsibility in finding out if you're still alive. It's all on you. Are you
it's
serious?
all on the voter. That's correct. And that's problematic. Now, mind you, that when you're talking with the vote, there's so many other apparatuses that are available to confirm and cross confirm where people live, that are available to the postal service, to the registrars and the voters voting offices. They choose not to use them because that's not their goal. Their goal is not really to keep these people on the rolls. Their goal is to remove people from the rolls. And so that's what we see happening. That's what we saw happening in Jacksonville, Florida, when we were down there. And the 90,000 people in that one county were removed from the polls, or were put in the waiting room to be removed from the polls because they sent them these postcards and they had not responded. And of course, the folks never even knew that the postcard was sent. But what is happening now is, with the proactive measures that we've put in place, they've now, Duval County has designated money now to send out emails and to do public publications to let people know that these are the 90,000 people that are going to be removed from the purge from the rolls if they don't respond. You need to take some action. So if you find out that you've been removed, you've been purged from a roll, from a voting roll, what you need to do is you need to re-register. That's it. The answer is re-register. But the problem is, if you don't re-register by the registration deadline, right, October the 7th in most states, then you can't re-register. Right at that point, you're done. You're out of the box. You've missed the train, and you can't vote till the next election, not this election. So that's why, beginning tomorrow, we start calling it Fannie Lou Hamer Week, right? And the great, register of voter register of voters that Fannie Lou Hamer was. So what we encourage people to do all this week is to check your status. Go to vote.org, check your status, check the status of your family members. Find out your friends, tell them to go check, because you want to be certain that you're registered to vote, that you're still on the rolls, that you haven't been purged, and that they haven't moved your polling place, because they'll do that as well. So all of those things are necessary, Santita, to be done right away.
Of course, you are on WOL and WOLDC every Tuesday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time with attorney Barbara Ardwine. And please, 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 please tune in, tune in, tune in. You don't have to be in DC. Go to WOL. It's part of Kathy Hughes' wonderful radio network. And you will get some of the best information, because it's a very interesting thing. Corporate media are not telling you about this, but you know what? We don't need to wait on them. You already know what's happening. But my question is, okay, how does Texas remove more than 1 million people from the voter rolls? How do you justify that? How does that happen? I don't understand that, because people are saying, "Look, I'm already registered. I'm good,"
Hmm.
and you're
Hmm.
saying, "No, no, you're not. You don't do that." Everybody, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Please like and share the show. Please go to the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel, the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Like the show, and the Santita Jackson and Friends Facebook page. Please like and share, everybody. But I need you to get those thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Like the show. How do you? I mean, I would think if Governor Kemp were a fair man, and I don't think that he is, because I don't think that he's handling uh, these desperate people in a humane way. I mean, he's
Hmm.
trafficking people all across the country so they can go to work, and they're losing their children. I don't know what that's about. Yeah, I said it. Yeah, I said it, y'all, because we got a lot of black kids are missing, brown kids are
Hmm.
missing, white kids are missing, Asian kids are missing. A lot of children are missing, and we need to talk about that. Nobody, where are they? And we're losing these children at the border because their parents are desperate, or they're being separated from their parents. It is just absolute. This is a horror. But that having been said, if you lose 1 million anything in a state, I would think that would be an emergency, right? So tell me, how do you lose 1 million voters in one state? I mean, not a region,
Yeah.
in one state. How does that happen?
Yeah, and it's an intentional act, you know. And when I say it's intentional, you got to look at the voters that they're losing. They're not losing white voters. That's not the vote. That's not the voter that's being
Okay.
lost. A vast majority of the voters that are being lost are the voters of color. And so what they do is that they usually they'll put a bullseye on certain areas, Harris County, right, where there's a heavy black population, and other areas like that. And what they do is they then start that process of weeding through the registrations to see what doesn't match, right? And is there a problem with the street address? Is there a problem with street versus avenue versus court versus lane? You know, something to show that the voter does not live where they say that they live. And so they then begin the process. When they identify all of this, they'll do that postcard thing. They'll send that postcard out and it's not responded. And then they can go ahead and start purging these voters. Their ultimate goal is to purge as many voters as they believe potentially will not be supportive of the incumbent, of those in power, as they can. And so in Texas, that's how you get to the 1 million number, is that if you start looking at where they're purging these voters, you'll start to see the similarity that's there of who they're trying to purge. And unfortunately, there are not enough people that are out there sounding the alarm, telling folks that they need to go and check their status with regards to, you know, whether or not they're registered to vote, and they remain registered to vote. That's just such a huge piece of what's going on right now, Santita, because there is not. You would think that if you're removing people from the voting rolls, that you would have commercials that were out. You have all of this stuff that's out to tell people to check on your status. Be certain that, you know, what do they do with regards to the coronavirus, right? They have all this money they put into publication to want people to get checked and all this other. The same type of effort should be put into your voting status at this point in time, and they don't do it. They don't do it because there's certain people that they know that they become more powerful if certain blocks of voters are removed from the rolls and the actions are taken to do that. That's why it's important for us to get this message out to particularly our communities, to alert us to checking on our status and being staying right on top of what's happening. And I tell you another thing, you know, because we're just coming back from Cincinnati, where we were doing voter registration, and we went to homeless shelters, right? Because many people that are unhoused, they don't know they still have the right to vote because they don't have an address. They think they don't vote. You don't lose your right to vote because you lose your home. That's not what happens. Your right to vote stays with you, and folks have got to go and register them and let them know that they still have the right to vote and how they can vote, and the addresses they can use and things that they can do to empower themselves through voting. Most folks that are in office, they don't want these folks to vote, so that's why it's important for us to go out and encourage that, Santita.
So, okay, that see, because you bring up the point that they could have the commercials. They could do that, but that's
Mhm.
not what they're doing.
No.
I mean, they're not doing that. What they're doing is letting you just fall into the great abyss. And that's why we're sounding the alarm, because you need to be alarmed, everybody, by this. Because this happened to more than 1 million people in Texas, and I bet you they do not know
Hmm.
that they are no longer on the rolls. The Keep Hope Alive show. We talked about this so much because I would say, Daddy, gee whiz, if you could talk about voting every week, you would. Please. He said, you don't know how important it is. The vote. Your vote is the right that gives you all of your other rights.
Hmm.
Okay. So Jeremy Geiger, my technical producer, and Trevor Gervais, who used to be a regular on the show, he got married and had a child, and so of course, understandably, he couldn't really be with us early on Sunday mornings. But wonderful, wonderful people, nonetheless. And during the commercial break, Trevor walked around to Jeremy, my technical producer, the board operator, also, and they went into Trevor's phone. They went into Jeremy's phone. And Trevor, who was already white, was whiter than a sheet when he came back and sat down. And Jeremy was sitting there like this. They both had been purged from the voter rolls.
Hmm.
They said the only reason we just said, okay, okay, we'll try it. And Trevor was one of the young activists who was pushing for same day on-site voter registration, which we got at that year. So many people. This is happening. It's an epidemic. Is it fair to say that?
Oh, absolutely. It's definitely an epidemic. And it's also, and I've always talked about the community of color being one of the groups that are targeted, but it's also targeted at young voters because young voters tend to be more progressive in their politics. So that's another group that's going to be targeted to be purged and to make it more difficult for them to access the ballot. So, all of those pieces are there. Santita, in Arizona, Arizona has the distinction of being the only state, the leading state in the United States that changes people's polling places more than any other state in the country. So that means that, you may think this is where you're supposed to vote because you've been voting there for the last 15 years. Well, they've changed it. They'll moved it. And they may or may not have notified you that that you've moved your polling place. So if you're one of those people that likes the old tradition of voting on election day, and so you wait until that Tuesday election day to go and cast your ballot, and you're in a rush because you have family obligations, the kids, the work, whatever it may be, and you go to your polling place and you learn that it's no longer your polling place. Where do I need to go? So now you're on the march to try to research, try to figure out what you need to do. That's the reason that we say go to vote.org now, because vote.org can break it down for you. It can tell you where your polling place is and whether or not you've been purged. And, we always encourage people to make a voting plan. Do it in advance. Figure out how you're going to vote, where you're supposed to vote, and all of those pieces before election day, so that on election day, or if you choose to do early voting, if it's offered by your state, or absentee voting, if that's offered, that you know what you're doing. You've done it in advance. You've got to be prepared in this game.
We're talking with Attorney Darrell Jones, Transformative Justice Coalition, the chair, and of course he and Attorney Barbara Arnwine are on WOL every Tuesday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. We're talking about the vote. It's Fannie Lou Hamer week, everybody. We're trying to get you registered to vote or re-registered to vote. Just because you registered the first time doesn't mean that you are registered for all time. They have purged more than 1 million voters in the state of Texas, and it's happening all over the country. We want you to look at the movie Vigilantes Inc. You can do it for free. Jamie Foxx and Leonardo DiCaprio have paid for you to see it for free. You don't have to pay for it. Go to saveyourvote.org. Go to gregpalast.com. When you see the movie, it's very entertaining. It's very much in the vein of Michael Moore. But you're going to find out a lot of things that are going to blow your mind. You're going to put a face on people who have been removed from the vote. You're going to find out that Governor Kemp, number one, did you know that the Georgia territory was not always a slave-holding territory? In fact, they were anti-slavery. Well, guess what his research, Greg Palast research, found out? The family that brought slavery into the Georgia territories, which is really Georgia over past Alabama, it's the Kemp family. They changed their name from the name they had several hundred years ago. Yeah, the one Stacey Abrams refused to which the person to whom she refused to concede. His family brought slavery here, and they don't doesn't want to talk about it, but that's what happened. You're gonna find out a lot of little things about that, and that's important. You need to see the movie. It will be very inspiring to you. In the meantime, you got to go to vote.org so that you can find out if you're still registered. Give me some outrageous instances in which people have been removed from the rolls. I can't help but think of Crystal Mason
Oh wow.
in Texas.
Yeah.
Because
And
you know what's interesting to me because I want you to tell what happened. Because all of these authority figures told her she could vote, but
mhm,
none of them were charged.
mhm,
She's the
mhm,
one who had to go to prison.
right.
What happened? What's the story of Crystal Mason? Because I think it's emblematic of a lot of folks' stories. Because she didn't want her mother's the one who made her go to vote. And if your mama makes you do something, you do that. I don't care how old you are.
Mhm.
She said, no, you've done your time. Go vote. Crystal Mason, who is she? What happened?
Crystal Mason is out of Texas, Houston, Texas area, and she years ago, a couple of years ago, uh, you know, got involved and was convicted of a federal tax violation. And as a result of the federal tax violation, she did some years in prison and then was released and placed on probation. This was all through the federal court system. Crystal Mason came from a family who was just ingrained in voting. That when it was voting day, the family got together and they went to vote. And so once Crystal Mason was released from federal custody, her family, it was voting day. Her mom said, "You need to vote." So Crystal Mason went and talked to her probation officer, her federal probation officer, and said, "I want to register. I want to vote. Can I vote?" And the federal probation officer said, "Sure. I don't see why you can't vote. You absolutely can vote." There was no one that told Crystal Mason that she could not vote, and she asked before she registered and went to vote. She went to the voting site, a polling place, and she asked, "Can I vote? Is there a
So she
problem?" They
asked
said,
the judge.
"Ask the judge. Ask the election judge. Can I vote?" Judge said, "Absolutely, you can vote." She went on and they didn't take her regular vote. They had her cast a provisional vote, that ballot, just in case there was an issue. They let her cast a provisional ballot, not a real ballot. After she cast the provisional ballot, they then decided that she didn't have the right to vote, and they violated her probation and said that she committed a new crime and charged her with voter fraud because she registered and attempted to vote and cast this provisional ballot. So as a result of that conviction for voter fraud, the federal judge sentenced her to 5 years in prison for registering to vote on a provisional ballot, never casting a real ballot, a provisional ballot, and after being informed by her probation officer as well as the election judge that she could do it. So she was sentenced to the 5 years in prison for that. She then appealed it, and it took approximately 3 years or so during the appeal process. But during the appeal process, every week she had to check back in to see if she had to go back to prison. Were they going to continue to allow her to be out, or did she have to report to prison? So every week she's calling in to the probation officer to ask, "Am I okay?" And that continues throughout that 3 year period. Finally, it goes through the appeals process, and the Texas Supreme Court, the Texas Federal Court, then rules that she did not violate the law, that that she's okay. But she went through all of that during that period of time and during those elections. Part of the impact of what happened with Crystal Mason is this, and this, we get into it heavily when we start talking about returning citizens and their right to vote, because this is what this impacts. The concept that they were really putting in place, and the governor was really putting in place there in Texas, was one to have a chilling effect with people that were returning citizens as to wondering whether or not they had the right to really vote, and whether or not they were willing going back to prison, trying to register and trying to vote. So that's what really Crystal Mason stood for. And it was just, we consider her a hero because she stood her ground and regained the right to vote. but it dovetails directly, Santita, into what happened in Florida, right? With DeSantis, with him putting together this police squad, right? The squad, the voting squad, to go after and investigate these people that were registered to vote when Florida said it was okay, but then they changed their mind and made it so it wasn't okay, and having them arrest people that were registering to vote for violations of their probation and for new felonies for registering to vote when they were no longer permitted to register to vote because of what the legislature had done there. So, it's a complete chilling effect to try to stop the restoration of rights for those that are returning citizens, to try to get them out of the game. Because what's the move? What's the goal for the conservative movement? Because they're smaller in number, is to have a smaller pool of voters that have access to the poll, because that increases their odds of being able to get elected.
We're talking with Attorney Daryl Jones. This is why you need to go to vote.org, Andre, Darlene. Yeah. Because Crystal Mason's story, that was designed to send a chill.
Mm-hmm.
If that can happen to her, don't mess up. And if you have any question, see, and this is where, we have people who are undocumented. You might be a naturalized citizen, or you might be a citizen who was natural born here, if you will. But you might have someone undocumented living with you. And that's not just people from Venezuela.
Mm-hmm.
That's the Haitians. That's a whole lot of folks. That's Africans. That's everybody. And you might feel afraid, reluctant, because we're being followed like never before. So I'm just trying to say, wait a minute, y'all. That's why I bring up the Crystal Mason story, because her mother told her, because her mother had been hearing, I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure, look, you can vote. You pay your debt to society. Boom. That's it. Girl, get out here and vote. Now, because she was trying to nudge her daughter along. I get that. And then she asked authority figures, Daryl. They all had bad information. An elected judge, I think we need to explain what they are. They're not judges. They're not even lawyers. Who
Mm-hmm.
are election judges?
No, election judges are folks that are trained by the Board of Elections to sit and administer the elections at the various proceedings. They sit over the polling places, and they make any decisions with regards to the administrative policies as to who can vote and any other administrative issues that come up. That's what the election judge does. So they're not a lawyer, they're not a judge, they don't have legal training, none of that stuff. But they've gone through a couple of courses, so they have the basic understanding of some of the things that are involved in the electoral process.
Well, I think it's important to establish that, because when we hear judge and election, like when you hear the Democratic and Republican Party, you might even think that they are an adjunct of the government. They're not. They're private corporations
Mm-hmm.
who can do as they choose. That's why when they pushed Joe Biden out, they were answerable only to their board of directors, who you don't even know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Look, everybody, say the quiet part out loud. You need to know what this is. You just happen to get a candidate this time who can make history, who can make you proud, who can make you happy. Because I've known her. So yeah, and I'm not just pulling for her because I've known her. This is someone who, she's not had it easy, you guys. And even if she had, if your heart's in the right place, I'll work with you. Even if I have to get out in the streets and protest your policies. And I might have to do that should she win, because she's way to the right of me on Israel. I'm not talking about where her heart is. I'm talking about where she is, where she is. And so I got to push her on that, because you can't use my money to drop 2,000 bombs, 2,000-pound bombs on people in Lebanon. I thought you said this was about what happened from Gaza.
Right.
Now, because wait a minute, it wasn't just Nasrallah who was killed. No. They killed dozens of people and wounded hundreds of others. They flattened 3 buildings and nearly flattened a 4th.
Mm-hmm.
They just decided to kill some people on that day, and that is what they're doing. You have hundreds of thousands of people who are on the beaches of Lebanon right now, like the people in Asheville. Oops, yeah, I said it. The people in Asheville don't have good water right now. That's why our infrastructure problem is an issue. while we're spending all this money overseas and on all of these misadventures that help Boeing, who cannot keep a plane in the air with the door attached,
Hmm.
who cannot get an astronaut home. Yeah, I said it. This is ridiculous. And I know Boeing's a better company than that. But right now, something's not right. But they're the ones who are getting the money. Raytheon and Northrop Grumman, they're the ones who are making all the money. In the meantime, we got real problems here. And your vote is the curative to all of that.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right, Santita, because when we start talking about regulations and things like that, those generally are determined by legislators, by Congress and members of the Congress, and what legislation is going to get through and what influences the members on how they vote on various issues. So that becomes really huge, and it funnels down to the vote, because the way that a member of Congress gets to the point of having any influence is being by voted back in, right? Every 2 years they're voting. They're running for an election. So there's an election every 2 years for a member of the House of Representatives. And so our vote becomes that much more important, because if you start replacing them with people that are consistent with what you believe should be happening, then it messes up their whole system. It throws a monkey wrench into it, because now you want somebody that's actually working for the people, for what the people want, not what industry wants, not necessarily what Boeing wants, and the regulations that are being placed on Boeing, if that's what your leaning is. But it all stems from your vote. All that power comes from that ability to vote. And so when we talk about folks that are trying to purge people from the voting rolls, they're generally trying to purge people that are challenged to that power that they have in place. And that's really how they're trying to aim it, and how they'll have the cards and the postcards and everything else go out to those communities, so they can increase their power, so they can continue to do what they're doing. So, what you're laying out is 100% on point. And the other piece that we want to throw in there is the Freedom to Vote Act, right? Because when we're talking about folks that are having their rights restored, every state in the union has the right to determine how and when and if someone can have their voting rights restored after they've been convicted of a felony. So if you're in Maryland or Illinois or Ohio, that's a feet in the street state. And what we mean by that is, if that person's feet are in the street, they have the right to vote. But there are other states, such as Florida, that say that if you're on parole or probation, you've got to pay all your fines, fees, and complete your parole or probation before you regain the right to vote. If you're in a state like Mississippi, which is on the other end of the spectrum, the state of Mississippi, in order for a person that's been previously convicted of a felony to be able to vote, it takes a vote of the General Assembly of the state of Mississippi. Not just a simple majority vote, but it is a 2/3 vote of the General Assembly of the state of Mississippi, and then the signature of the governor. So the governor could still override that decision, and it goes back to the legislature to make a decision for that individual person to have the right to vote restored.
So that's why down ballot voting is so important, because so much of this, the U.S. Congress doesn't control this.
No.
The state legislatures do.
That's correct.
I don't think we really understand how important our state legislators are. They're the ones who have the power, right? They've got a lot of power. That's why you have to vote. And that's why we're getting pushed out of the system. So, but what are you seeing in Florida? I mean, just kind of take us around the country for a minute, because when I heard 1 million plus people in Texas, I just said, you got to be true. Who is doing that? That sounds so crazy to me. And Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds said, oh, no, that has happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't see the Democrats saying they should have billboards everywhere. Vote.org. Are you registered today? Like, have you talked to your child today? Are you registered today? Go to vote.org. We need your vote. But they too are looking for a shrinking population of voters.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's how the minority party keeps power, is by getting rid of some of the majority that is out there, the majority population. That's the reason why, in the macro of it, that's the reason why the electoral college wins over the popular vote, right? The popular vote would not have had most of the judges that are now appointed to the Supreme Court appointed. because they were appointed by presidents that lost the popular vote, not that they won the popular vote. So, when we start looking at that, we begin to understand how the minority has the ability to rule the majority. And when you start purging voters that are part of the majority, that strengthens and empowers that minority to be able to continue to rule. So when we get to states like Florida, and Florida is a great example where we have the voter, and we've given the example of Jacksonville, where 90,000 were moved to the inactive list, which we call the waiting room to be purged. Well, that's
So
just
wait a
in
minute.
Jacksonville.
Hold on. If you're on the inactive, I'm just asking a lot of questions because I want everybody to hear this. If you're on the inactive list, are you still registered?
If you're on the inactive list, if you're on the inactive list, you are still registered at that point in time. However, if you do not vote in that election, you are then purged and removed from the voter rolls.
Wow.
And they don't send you again. They send you the flimsy postcard to tell you you're on this inactive list, but that's it. If you don't respond to the flimsy postcard, if you throw the flimsy postcard away, you're done. That's it. You're off the rolls. You're purged, and you will not receive any notification because they're saying we don't know where you live to send you a notification because you didn't respond to the flimsy postcard that we sent to you. And that was just in Jacksonville, Florida. So, and we came across that because of an investigation by a small local journalist, Will Brown, that did the investigation in Jacksonville. So the question then became, what about the other cities and locations in Florida? What are they doing? And this all came about because in 2021, the Florida General Assembly passed this legislation calling for them to clean up and enable the local jurisdictions to clean folks out of clean up their voting rolls, their polling places. And so that's how this came about in Jacksonville. This is how this was discovered. So the question becomes, what's happening in Broward County? What's happening, in the Miami suburbs and all these other places where we know there are other heavy Black populations? We know Jacksonville has a heavy Black population in Florida. So that explains why that's one of the areas where that was focused. We then go to areas like Alabama, Santita, where in Alabama, they've now passed Senate Bill 1 that, Lord knows how it passed and what I understand what their intent was. But one of the things it does is it says that for an absentee ballot, the only person that can put the person's absentee ballot into the mail to mail it back is the voter themselves or their family member, meaning a son, a daughter, and it lists what family members can do it. What does that mean if you're in a nursing home and you're confined to a bed and no one's coming to see you, or your daughter lives across the state, or your son lives somewhere else and they can't get to you? That means that no one, the director of that nursing home, cannot take your ballot for you and put it in the mail. Your best friend who comes to see you all the time cannot help the family member, someone else's family member, get their vote cast. If they put it in the mailbox, what happens? They're guilty of a felony for helping someone to exercise that right to vote. What happens if you, Senator Lena Turner in Milwaukee, Wisconsin?
Lena Taylor. Well, now, now she's a judge. You have Nina Turner. I know. You have Senator Nina Turner, and then you had Senator Lena Taylor, who is now a judge.
Yes, who's now a judge. Well, you remember, 2 years back,
judge, a sitting judge, everybody, a sitting judge.
Sitting judge. When Senator Lena Turner,
right. Everybody does that. They said everybody conflates their names, so don't feel bad.
but it was time for her to vote, and she broke her ankle. Remember, she couldn't walk, she couldn't get out of bed. If she was in Alabama and couldn't make it to vote and couldn't make it to her polling place, the only person that could do it with her would be one of her children or her spouse. She couldn't call her friends. She couldn't call her aide to come and get her absentee ballot and put it in the mailbox for her. The aide would have been guilty of a felony. That's what Alabama's law would have done. And it's designed to restrict, to make smaller, to restrict that voter base. That's what it's all about. So, we have examples like that that go on across this country that are just terrifying with regards to their impact, and most importantly, they're simply undemocratic. We should be trying to make this voting process easier, not harder. Why in the state of Texas, Santita, did they stop drive-through voting in Harris County, where people could drive up and cast their ballots and keep going? What did the state legislature in Texas do? No, no, no. Too many Harris County people are voting. All those black and brown people in Harris County. No, we're not going to let them have it that easy. You can't just drive up and drop off your ballot. We have restrictions on it. Georgia did the same thing. They started closing their drop boxes, moved them indoors so they were no longer accessible with 24-hour access to the drop boxes in Georgia, so that you had to be there 9 to 5, which went against what the Dropbox purpose was, right? The purpose of the Dropbox was to make it easy, 24-hour accessibility, cameras so you can see what's happening. It's just incredible what's happening across this country with regards to voting rights right now.
But it's not just happening in the South. It is happening where we have our college students, right? Mm-hmm. And it's also uneven because these college students, this is where you live, everybody. If you go away to college, it's where you live. And even though I voted absentee, but after college, I was still in Washington, so I did not switch my voting. I switched my voting to Washington because I was like, I'm a resident here, which was fine with me. But at one time, we were making some inroads, making it easier for college students to vote. And what is it? Is it in Vermont? They're making it significantly more difficult for college students. So these are white students, but they're students. And these students tend to be more progressive. Mm-hmm. And they're being blocked. And these are I'm very concerned. I know we only have about 5 or 6 more minutes here. But I thought about you immediately. I thought about you and the work that you and Barbara Arnwine, the work that you all are doing. She is really the mother of voter protection in the United States today. And I thank you both for your work that you're doing. Because indeed, we have to remember that the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, which were applied to Black people, but they were for everybody. Mm-hmm. Because when you ended chattel slavery for Black people, you ended it for everybody. Okay, yeah, they had a little exception in there that when you go to jail, you become a slave again, but we did end slavery. Then you became a citizen because that was not a given. That's what Frederick Douglass was pushing for. And our ancestors, they said, no, we're not going anywhere. Liberia, you can go on and set that up. We are Americans. We've been here since the 1500s. We're not going. And I'm telling you, I'm not going. No, I want my citizenship also, because that was not a given, everybody. Mm-hmm. Okay. Then the vote in 1870. After all of that, after you were freed from slavery, after you became a citizen, the vote came last. Mm-hmm. And then LBJ said, it's 1964, 65. We still haven't enforced this thing. We need a Voting Rights Act to protect that because we've not made good on that promise, although the Constitution was amended to give these people the right to vote. Mm-hmm. Do I have it right?
No, you got it. You got it.
So help me, Attorney Darrell Jones, because I think we have to continue to hammer this home. You're right, Robert. We're not going back, but you know what? We have to be very purposeful about not going back. And we will be getting back to the mornings. I had pneumonia, so I had to kind of switch it up because I was trying to get myself back together. We're going to do that. But what'd you say? Take to the streets for voters' rights? Yeah. In a nonviolent way, knock on your neighbor's door, ask them. Because, everybody's not connected to the internet, Darrell, for a whole lot of reasons. And, and I completely understand that. And thank you, sweetie. Thank you, Robert. I completely understand. I understand that. That having been said, maybe can you go to the library? How, if you don't have internet access, and that is very easy for a lot of people today, it is hard out here, and I get it. What do you do? Mm-hmm. If you don't have internet, if you do not have internet access, what do you do?
Well, if you don't, most people have a mobile phone. And if you have a
Mm,
mobile phone and you can go to vote.org and check on your status. Now,
okay.
I encourage people that if you're going, this weekend, if you're in Pittsburgh, we're going to be in Pittsburgh registering voters, right? It's the big Pittsburgh versus Dallas Cowboys
But,
football game.
and you're coming to Chicago.
So we're coming to Chicago, I think, on Wednesday or Thursday for a votercade there. In Chicago, we'll be there.
Not Racine.
So not Racine, not Racine. But one of the things that I always encourage people to do is when you're going to your meetup with your friends, your buddies, a bar or whatever to watch games or any gathering, pull out your phone and do the vote.org and ask your friends to do the same. Just check on their status. It doesn't take but a moment. Check on your status while they're there. That's
Could
the
they
way
use
that
your
this
phone?
happens.
Could
I'm
someone else
sorry.
could someone else use your phone if they needed to get registered?
Someone else can use your phone. Yeah, because you're going to vote.org. It's going to take you to the site. They can use your phone to register. They don't have to use their own phone to register. They can
Okay.
use any device to be able to register to vote. But it's just important right now, particularly this week, that you go to that vote.org site to check on the status of yourself and your family and your friends. And when you get together this weekend, folks, please encourage your friends to pull out their phones and, hey, let's do the vote. Let's see if you're into whatever type of party, if you're in a shot party, take a shot. If you're registered, or whatever rule you come up with. So long as you're getting people to check on their voting status to be certain that they're in the game and have the ability to be able to exercise that right to vote. Because, it's one thing. We had one student, Santita, and I'll close on this, Layla Diallo, was one of our students in the Transformative Justice Coalition program where we train Gen Zs, and we show the movie Vigilante Incorporated as a part of that. And what Layla did was she did a TikTok and an IG on the movie Vigilante, and she talked about how she put it all together and talked about all the purging and all that went on in Georgia and all that she learned in this movie, and that people needed to go to vote.org to check on their status and blah 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 blah. Well, she showed it to her mom. Right, and her mom was like, "What's all this traction that just this TikTok that you've done or IG that you've done is getting? Let me look at it." And so she looks at it, and her mother, who lives in Georgia and has lived in the same house all of her life or most of her life, and voting at the same site, says, "Oh, let me go check." And it turns out that her mother was purged and didn't know it. And so I say that to say, and her mother's active; she's an active voter. I say that to say, take your family and your friends this weekend or whenever you see them, Thursday night football, Monday night football, whatever it is, go through the
Church.
vote.org exercise with them now to see if
Wednesday night church.
Wednesday night church, prayer service, minister in the pulpit, tell everybody in the congregation, pull their phones out, go vote.org, be certain that you're registered to vote. Do it wherever you are. It's too easy to check and too easy to correct. But if you're not registered and October the 7th hits, you're out of the ballpark and the train will have left you and you will not be able to vote unless you're in a state that has same-day voter registration.
Or October 4th in South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
This is
or
the
October,
week.
That's right. This is
the week. This is the week. And Kenneth, you said parents, keep your kids in school. Immigrants will have all the non-skilled jobs. That is not the immigrants' fault. I just want you to know that, Kenneth. There's something called the tent program for refugees. This is happening all over the world. They are bringing how should I put it? They want Venezuela without Venezuelans. They want Zimbabwe without Zimbabweans. Because when you go to all these places, that's where the riches are. And if you get the indigenous people out, then they can just go on and take the riches. Okay? So be clear on that. They're being brought here. Governor Kemp is showing you that. If Governor Kemp wanted to take these migrants back, he's at the border. He could take them right back across the border. No, he puts them on trains, planes, and automobiles and sends them all across the country, and they go to work for cheap. The country was built on stolen land. This one with unpaid and poorly paid labor. We're still doing that. We need to get hip to the game. Don't hate the player, hate the game, y'all. And you got to vote about that. You got to vote to end NAFTA. The deindustrialization of America is real, but you can vote about it. In fact, the only way that's going to happen, the only way that's going to be upended, the only way we're going to end these crazy wars, you got to vote about it. What did Barack Obama say when he got into office? He said to Jamie Dimon and all the big titans of Wall Street, he said, "You don't understand. I'm the only one standing in between you and the pitchforks." These people are angry. They're angry with you. And because they like me, I'm the one who's keeping you from getting strung up because they are furious. Because these people, we lost our homes, lost our wealth. The University of Chicago's $100,000 a year. So is NYU. Can you send your children there? No, no. And they're not going to give you full scholarships. Remember, affirmative action was ended on the college level, so you ain't going to get in, and you're not going to be able to get refuge in historically Black colleges and universities because they are throwing out the boards of trustees and the college presidents. They're turning them into predominantly white universities. Vote about it, everybody.
And the service academies that were supposed to be exempted, there's a case now challenging that, whether the service academies, the U.S. Naval Academy, et cetera, whether they need to be under that students for fair admissions policy as well, that affirmative action.
Well, they're going to let them in because they need people to do the war. Look, my grandparents are buried at Arlington. I'm not mad at the troops. What I am mad is I'm upset about poor people fighting rich men's wars. I'm bothered by that. I'm bothered by the fact that our troops get overseas and they see that what they were recruited on is not what they're fighting for. They are poor folks fighting to uphold rich folks, and that's not right. And then they come home and they cannot get jobs. They come home and their wives and their partners are living on the edges, are living on bases, if they're lucky, where they have payday loan centers at the edges of the bases because they cannot afford as enlistees to eat. They can't get from payday to Monday. Something about that ain't right. And what did you say, Webb? You should never lose your citizenship if you were born here? Absolutely not. Yeah. But they've made it extremely hard. But that's why the organizations like the Transformative Justice Coalition, they deserve your support. They need your support. They are out on the hustings right now, getting people registered to vote. Very quickly, where will you be this week?
This week we'll be in Chicago on the 3rd, and on the 5th we'll be in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, registering people, part of our Rise and Vote activation and concert series. And we'll be hitting not only the general population in Pittsburgh, but we also go to those that are unhoused. So we'll go into many of the shelters and be certain that they are registered to vote and that they know they have the right to vote, Santita, because it's so important that everyone exercise that right.
And people who are in jail, who have not been convicted yet, they still have the right to vote. So if
they've been convicted of a misdemeanor, they have a right to vote. They still have that right to vote. If they've been convicted, not sentenced, they have the right to vote. So it's all relative to what's happening in their state, in their county, and in that jail that makes that determination. So
tomorrow.
I apologize.
Can we talk about that tomorrow?
Absolutely.
Because
Absolutely.
I think many of us are caught up in the system. No shame, no shade, and we need to know how, just if we can vote, because many people come out of jail or prison, and there's a difference, and they don't know whether they can get vote. They're in a gray area, and they're really not. But if you don't have the information, that's the issue. But we need to continue to talk about this on this Fannie Lou Hamer week. This is what she would want us to do, and she'd be doing this, beating the drum every day. And the different aspects of this that we need to talk about. We need to talk about what you get when you vote, Attorney Daryl Jones, and what you lose when you don't vote. What life was like for us when we could not vote. We don't even remember that because most of us were not even born. But life was very different for us when on paper we did not have the right to vote. When you didn't have the right to vote, you also could not ride on the front of a bus. You also had color-coded restrooms. You also could not sit at the lunch counter. You couldn't try on clothes in the stores downtown. when you didn't have the right to vote. Don't think that the right to vote is not important. We still have redlining, but it's illegal now. Now, is it practiced? Yes. Is it illegal? Today it is, then it was not. Your vote is everything. It's everything. Use it. Do not lose it. A lot of people were abused so you could have it.
Mm-hmm.
And don't let anyone talk you out of that. Go to vote.org right now and find out if you are still registered to vote, and let everybody know. Call folks and let them know that's where they need to go. And let them know that on that same site, if they have been deregistered, they can re-register. Hey, if you need to register to vote, can you register at vote.org, or do you have to go someplace to get registered to vote?
Yeah, vote.org will take you exactly where you need to go to register. So it'll take you right
if you're
to it.
registering for the first time.
It'll do everything you need to do.
All right. And then saveyourvote.org, everybody. Look at Vigilantes Inc. You don't want to miss that. You really don't. It's a great, great movie. Sending you so much love. Attorney Jones, let me know what's the best time for you tomorrow, because we got to do this, because too many people do not know that they cannot, that they've been purged from the voter rolls.
Absolutely.
And we're working actively. That's why you're on the road this week. That's why you were stuck on a plane for 10 hours. Bless your heart. Oh, I'm sorry about that. But hey, but you look great. You don't look like it happened to you. Sending you so much love. I will talk to you tomorrow, and we're going to make it even earlier. So I just don't know what time, everybody. Andrew Maloney, sending you so much love. Thank you. You know, look, you can't keep me down. I can't stop, won't stop, don't stop. Thank you, baby. I'm Santita Jackson. Daryl Jones, catch him and Barbara Arnwine on WOL tomorrow, or really today. That's what this is going to be at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. WOL. Attorney Barbara Arnwine and Attorney Daryl Jones. Sending you so much love, everybody. Santita Jackson, AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. Bye-bye until tomorrow.